So in the early 1900s, the Rockefellers, who were the largest petroleum producers in the world, right? They were being charged to get rid of their petroleum byproducts. They were getting, like, the government was saying, you can't dump these. We have to pay to properly dispose of these petroleum byproducts. This guy, richest guy in the world at that time, so smart. What he did instead was he partnered with the very first pharmaceutical company that was ever in existence. He bought up this guy because those medications, doctors were using these petroleum byproduct medications, and they were causing side effects. And the herbalists and the alternative medicine doctors, who had always been at the cutting edge of healing, they had many other more effective ways of treating illness and disease. So the petroleum byproduct pharmaceuticals, that industry was failing. So Rockefeller came in and he purchased these pharmaceutical companies, and then he purchased all of the news, the Post, right? The Post in the early 1900s, there's like a newspaper, all of the news outlets back at that time. And he began pumping propaganda about how alternative doctors were quacks and how the only way to treat people was with these pharmaceuticals. And he labeled all our alternative practitioners as quacks, and it totally worked.
And they did drugs from petroleum?
So yes, that's what pharmaceuticals are derived from. The derivative component of pharmaceuticals are petroleum byproducts. This is at least of the origins. I don't know exactly how that has stepped through into today, but back when Rockefeller purchased those companies, they were producing pharmaceutical drugs from petroleum byproducts. So he was able to avoid all of the fees from dealing with his waste, funnel that money into producing pharmaceuticals. He also partnered with a couple of the largest medical education platforms in the world at that time. It was...
He hired two brothers that did this report, Fleissner report,
yes.
Was it called?
Yes.
That they convinced everybody to do the hospitals nationwide.
Right, and they also bought up the educational institutions. The first, I was just writing about this, and I'm blanking on the names, but there were two. The American Medical Association, they became the largest funder of the AMA back in the early 1900s. But also,
but if you produce drugs, you can't sponsor medical associations. You just can't.
Right, and that's why we're in the pickle we're in today, because that is what's happening, and it always has been. And they keep it quiet. They go through, side silent corporations so that people can't trace back the origins. But there are many books on this, and they are correct. It was in my nursing history book. It was like an assigned reading book for me. This is like 2011. I was assigned this book called The History of Nursing, and they talked about the Rockefellers and the way that they propagandized alternative medicine and pushed the pharmaceutical agenda. So here we are. I mean, it's still I would say that these are all like very honest and true contributing factors to why we're in this position we're in today, because we have these industries who are making profit, and they're being subsidized and funded by, handshake backdoor deals, partnered with, more people looking to make money. And at the end of the day, the medical model has really been kidnapped by a business model where they don't care about your well-being. They care about making profit. And that's what drove me out, because I can't do that.
But one can ask how much enough is enough. But at the same time, right now, they can't just pull the trigger or say stop, because they have to admit that we were basically...
Correct.
Bamboozling the whole nation for, let's say, 100 years, for 50 years.
Yeah, and that's why I have such a hard time in communicating this, not just with my colleagues, but also with the public, because people, And that's actually why I've stepped into leadership and ethics coaching and education, specifically for this reason. Because what I've come to understand is that until we correct the character failures in humanity that have taken place to get us to this point, we're not going to be able to grapple with these questions on a mass scale, because people can't emotionally, psychically, mentally handle the conversations, right? We're coming from places of fear. We don't have the courage to have the conversations, to honestly analyze the details, and to actually evaluate what has taken place. We don't have the courage to do it. Why? And I understand why, right? We've spent our entire lives, even for me, I spent my entire life getting to this point, and I've thrown it all away. What kind of person does that? You know, like that is a hard thing to do, and most people just aren't willing to do it. And so that's what, at the end of the day, what I really like to put into the foundations of this leadership coaching is, what have I gotten out of this and what have I lost? Okay, so what I've lost is my career and my, you know, my background, the work that I did in medicine, all of that expertise, the career that I was building. I've lost that. What have I gained? I am free. I don't have to comply with their protocols anymore. More importantly, I've shown myself that I am of value enough to tell the truth no matter what the cost. And when you tell yourself that, when you communicate to yourself, I am not going to comply with ethical violations that harm my spirit. So when we lie, when we conceal, when we do these things, when we hide from the truth, it suffocates your being. You know, on a spiritual, psychological perspective, you're telling yourself, I'm not worth it to tell the truth. I'm not valuable enough. My voice isn't loud enough. What I have to say doesn't matter. What I'm doing is not important. So I'm just going to do what everybody else is doing because that's what I'm being told to do. And this is why I like that homeschool background and why I like to bring that in, because I was raised with that inner strength to be able to look at my actions and be able to say, I don't care what other people think about the choices that I'm going to make. I'm going to do what's right, because if I don't honor that authentic voice within myself, A, I'm showing myself that I'm a coward. B, I'm showing my children that I'm a coward. What happens when we teach our children cowardice? We raise children into adults that are cowards. And how do you think we got here to where we are today? It's generational cowardice that's been propagandized into us over generations, through the school systems, through the indoctrination, parents, and also through the abuse. You know, when parents abuse their children, you know, you're degrading their soul, their individual spirit. I mean, of course, children need guidance, right? But we have all of these histories of the way that we treat our children that disempowers them. The public institutions disempower our kids at every turn. You have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom. You know, if you're not good at reading or math, you're not worth, right. You're going to become a whatever on the streets, whatever story it is that they tell us. There are these small ways that we remove our children's autonomy and their ability to actually access and enter their full authentic being, the purpose. Why did we come here? Why are you here? Right? And those are the things that these conversations, at the end of the day, I don't think that there's any other way to move forward, because if we don't address those core foundational values, people can't have the conversation. You can't honestly have these conversations when people are defensive, fearful, or motivated by anything other than the truth. And even to take it a step further than that, it's like, what does it mean to care about the truth? It means to deeply value authentically engaging with the world from a place of love, deep love and respect. So there are these qualities, right, that if we don't have them, we can't have these conversations, because it's not going to go in the direction of positivity, because people are too shut down. All of that started within 1 week of the rollout of the COVID vaccine to the public. So she was witnessing, I was witnessing, both of us independently contacted our management and said, hey, we're seeing a dramatic increase in drug side effect. We need to document this so that it can be recorded and researched. My friend, she was actually told, if you report these side effects, we will fire you. I was told, no, we can't report those because we cannot prove that they are being caused by the vaccines. I was receiving 3 to 4 phone calls a day from my staffing department begging me to come to work every single day. What does that mean? They were desperate for staff. This hospital has had 3 times more admissions than we've ever had since the hospital opened their doors. I went and spoke to all of our city officials publicly, and I told them what was happening in the hospitals, and I informed everybody about the things that nobody wanted to report on, and I got silenced there too. Do you know how many people I met who they themselves or their partners were targeted and destroyed for curing cancer? A practitioner who was curing cancer, they didn't want him to continue working because his work was changing the world, so they set him up. Videos planted on his computer.
Child porn.
Yes, I am of value enough to tell the truth no matter what the cost.